Record. Hello, I'm Randy Frost of the Bowen Center for the Study of the Family in Washington, D.C. And with me today is Dr. Amy Arnsten, professor of neuroscience and professor of psychology at the Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Arnsten is the featured scientist who will be presenting at our symposium this fall, November 7th and 8th. The symposium is called Bowen Family Systems Theory and Family Psychotherapy. Dr. Arnsten has spent a professional life studying the prefrontal cortex and all that it affects in human functioning. She's particularly studied the impact of what she calls uncontrollable stress on the functioning of the prefrontal cortex. Even mild uncontrollable stress can take the prefrontal cortex offline. Bowen theory, as many of you know, describes mechanisms by which relationships in the family generate chronic uncontrollable stress. Some members of the family will become vulnerable to developing physical, emotional, or social acting out symptoms. So welcome, Dr. Arnsten. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your work and its possible implications for Bowen theory.
Thank you so much, Randy. I'm really looking forward to our November get-together, where I'll be talking about the prefrontal cortex, which is our most recently evolved brain region, and it is in charge of so many fascinating and really important functions to human relationships. For one, it's really important for the production of language, what we call Broca's area. And it also subserves higher reasoning, abstract thought, and working memory, our mental sketchpad. So these are our higher abilities to understand things. And prefrontal cortex also provides thoughtful, flexible, top-down control of our attention, our actions, and our emotions. So it helps us filter out unhelpful stimuli, and really importantly, it can inhibit inappropriate impulses, habits, and emotions. So for example, it can go down to our primitive brain circuits and inhibit aggressive impulses, for example, so that we can have better self-control. It's also important for high-order decision-making, especially flexible decision-making, where you can change your decision based on changes in the environment. It allows us to plan and organize for the future. And very importantly, it allows us insight and judgment about ourselves and about others. It gives us hope and optimism, and that helps us persevere through difficulty and really take on the challenging tasks that make all the difference. And the highest order parts of our prefrontal give us empathy and moral conscience, and so are really important for our social relationships and having healthy relationships. But what we've learned is that exposure, even to quite a mild stress, if it makes us feel unsafe, and if we feel we have no control over that stressor, so we feel helpless, the prefrontal cortex very rapidly can go offline. And it switches control of our behavior, our thoughts, our reactions to more primitive brain circuits. And this can save our life when we're in many kinds of danger. In modern life, I think about it when we're cut off on the highway and you need to stop planning what you're going to do later that afternoon and instead just slam on the brakes, a habit that we've learned from many years, hopefully, of driving. So this can be really useful to survival, and this is probably why our brains have these mechanisms. But you can see how harmful it is if you need these higher functions to thrive, to solve threats like climate change, and to create healthier human relationships. So with chronic stress, we actually lose prefrontal gray matter. The cell bodies remain, but their connections atrophy. And we get symptoms like this: decreased self-regulation and top-down control, so increased compulsive or habitual behaviors, increased reactive behaviors and feelings, and impaired inhibitory control. So increased anger, for example, where we can't control our temper. We often then have reduced insight about ourselves and others because these are often unconscious autonomic reactions where we don't have the foot in the door to stop ourselves and say, you know, this is not going to be helpful in the long run. And we can have impaired judgment about ourselves and others and moral conscience, and lose empathy and create a vicious cycle in our relationships. But hopefully, with proper treatment, and especially if we're younger, although I like to think if you're as old as I am, it just takes a little longer, that we can regrow our prefrontal connections and functions and healthy relationships be restored. So I look forward to having this as a conversation in November.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arnsten. And I believe that your research fits well with Bowen theory, and I know that many of the other speakers at the conference are going to be referring to your research as they present their own thinking and experience.
Wonderful. See you there, Randy.
You bet. See you then. Bye for now.